Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. We got John Cerasani. He's the founder of Glencrest Global, venture capital firm out of Chicago with over 30 current investments. There's a lot more behind that story, but how are you doing today, John?
Awesome, Jordan. This is exciting, man. Happy to be here, brother.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the Clockedin podcast. Where does your journey begin? Because I know it wasn't just I'm doing venture capital now. How did that story start for you?
I got to tell you what, man, I was asked recently to do a motivational speech for some kids. And that's one of the first things I said to them. I said, you don't just get to wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to be a venture capitalist. And, I suppose some people do. If you've come from generational wealth or something like that, yeah, I guess you could just make that your thing. But I did not come from that. I came up from very I wouldn't say humble beginnings, but very middle class. My dad was a high school teacher and a football coach, and I was blessed to be good at football, and it got me into a couple prestigious universities, and kind of just kept my head on a swivel. And I was opportunistic in life, my friend, and ultimately ended up starting a company in insurance, having a very nice exit in 2015. Fast forward to 2020, I'm like, you know what, I'm a little bit too young to be retired, and I will be a venture capitalist now, and that's what I'm doing.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So let's backtrack. So
Sure.
because the thing I find very interesting about you, John, is your ability to change and shift and make the most of every opportunity. Because there's a lot of people who are stuck in the rut. They never find that ability to jump. So
Yep.
for you, when you were going to Notre Dame, you get the starting role, and then you face that adversity. How did you overcome? How did you think about football? Were you thinking I'm going pro, or like
Yeah.
what was the thought behind that?
Yeah, it's so funny. Now that I'm in my 40s, I end up telling this. I've probably thought more about college football the last few years than I ever did in the 20 years prior to that. And it's only because in my life, man, I've always had something new going on. I never really had to like sit back and rest on my laurels and be like, oh yeah, like Al Bundy, the old I had 6 touchdowns in high school at the Polk High School game. You know what I mean? Like I've always been on to something that's relatively significant. And I did, as I reflected, I did, have a pretty rough time, man. I thought I was going to play professional football. And, the story is the story. I don't dramatize it. It is the story. I guess I never really thought about it to the magnitude I have been lately. Right. And, I got an injury the last game of my senior year, and that injury caused me to not be able to play football anymore. And I went from thinking I was going to be playing on the Bears or the Cowboys one day to needing to look for a job. And it's like, okay, what do you do now? You don't have too much time to sit there and pout. And I started interviewing with everyone and found myself in the insurance industry, which I was very, I would say very blessed to end up in that industry. And blessed is not a word I use very often, by the way. So.
Absolutely. And because the thing is, I know so many athletes who they reach that top level and they're almost there. And that is a very impressive feat. A lot of people can't transfer that into business. How
Right.
do you think you were able to go about that? Because that's it's a very similar skill set, but they're different at the same time.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's tough. And you got to find something where your passion lied. Like for me, it was always just the ability to make money. I always looked for not necessarily angles, kind of has a negative connotation. So I don't want to say angles, but I was always just looking for opportunities. You explain A, B, and C to me, and other people might be looking at it at face value. Other people might be looking at it from a scientific perspective. I look at it from okay, how do people profit within that? What are the different layers of people making money with A, B, and C? And that's just how I always looked at life. And I was fortunate where I said to end up in insurance, because that's an industry with a lot of money, and it's also very competitive. So they compensate people that could bring in revenue pretty well in that industry if you're at the right employer. And I did just that, man. I found myself in a very competitive environment. that you were compensated for when you won and when you win. And I was really just able to regenerate all of that passion I had for football into being a good business to business salesperson. And gosh, you know, I knock on wood, man. If I would have taken a different job in a different industry, or shit, even worse, Jordan, even worse, it's going to shock you. If I wouldn't have gotten hurt and actually played in the NFL, that would have been a detriment. I wasn't on track to be the next freaking Peyton Manning. I would have been making league minimum. I would have been a mid to late round draft pick. Probably would have been done when I was 26, 27 years old, like the rest of my friends that played in the NFL. What were they doing at 27 years old? They're out looking for their first job, because I got news for you. They didn't make enough money over those 5 years to not work again. I'll tell you right freaking now. And what was I doing at 27? I was already starting my new company, my own company that I would one day sell for dozens of millions into private equity. So things happen for a reason, my friend. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that's an incredible perspective to share,
Mhm.
because there's so many people out here facing adversity, and we're just like, oh shit, like we got the
Yeah.
shit end of the stick. And it's like, no, like this is meant for you. This is a gift for you if you view it that way. And then the other
Mhm.
thing I really like that you said was ABC. The amount of
Yep.
people I see who get option A and they're like, yes, I like that one. I'm done. I'm
Right.
not looking at anything else. It's like,
Yep. Yep.
no, no, you got to open your eyes. You got to see
Love
other
that.
stuff. You got to see what's
Yep.
out there,
I
because
love that,
there's too
man.
many. Yeah.
Yep.
There's too many times where we're stuck and we're like, yo, this is a good situation, which I imagine at 26, 27, you were
Mhm.
in probably a pretty good situation as you've described it before.
Yep.
And who gives that up? Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they didn't see the other view, they didn't see the other idea. So where'd you get that vision?
Well, and that's part of why I keep going back to the fact that I was in an industry that I was blessed to fall in this industry, because there's opportunities in insurance that you don't really need too much capital, and it's the brokerage slash intermediary slash consulting side of the business from a corporate perspective. All right. So yeah, I was doing great. I was working at this company called Arthur J. Gallagher, which is one of the insurance giants, and man, I'm making in the six figures. I'm making 140 grand. The issue though is that you could see dollar for dollar what your revenue is, and you know,
Yeah.
I'm bringing in around $1 million and I'm making 140. Well, am I getting this business because of the Gallagher name on my business card? Maybe, but not 860 grand of it. Maybe a little bit of it. And I just would look around, man. And there's people 40 somethings, 50 somethings that were working there, that good for them. And they made a nice little career out of it. They all have big vice president titles and whatever the hell else, but they're making 180, 200. And now this is going back, guys. That's a lot of money. This is going back to like 2003-ish, 2004-ish. And there was other people in the industry though, making 300, 400 grand, 500 grand. And I would see it. And there was just not a path there at Gallagher to do that. So I went one day and I asked for a raise. And it would have screwed up their compensation model for a 27-year-old to get the raise I was asking for. And to this day, man, I'm thankful. I'm thankful to my boss for not giving it to me. Ultimately, it forced me to look around elsewhere. I started looking around the industry, and I was getting jobs that were significantly more higher paid. But like, okay, if I would have done the same production at Gallagher that I go do it at Assurance, which is part of Marsh now, okay, I'd
Yeah.
be making like 350 grand. Okay, I could dig that. I could dig that's a lot of money. But wait a minute, why am I going to go down that road to them? If I could write $1 million and the business card name doesn't matter, and Assurance Corporation is giving me the exact same value proposition as Gallagher, we're going to help you with prospecting. We're going to help you with your account management. And when you grow, you're going to get a senior account executive on your accounts. All you're going to be able to do is sell, 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 John. And who knows? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But wait, I don't need you guys for that, though. I could do that shit myself. I do appreciate it. And 300 grand would be a lot of freaking money. I was 27 years old. But you know what? Screw this, man. I'm going to go out on my own. And everyone told me, dude, all these people in the industry, and that's when it came so clear to me. Like USI was another big one. Aon's another big one. you can never get over like an 800 or 900 grand book of business on your own. And your margins are going to be so low because you're going to have to hire all these people and outsource this shit. Wrong, wrong. My company was bringing in millions. I had an 80% profit margin with like like 5 employees was the most I even had. And probably didn't even
And,
need 2 of them. One of them's job was to drive me around in a limo. No bullshit. Like that was his job to drive me around a limo.
and John, and the best part about that is that you mentioned it right there. The guys who are in the company saying you can never pull this off,
Exactly.
they've never even pulled it off themselves. So
I
how
would,
can you take advice from them?
yeah,
Because
bro. Well,
it
and
happens.
it's an admitting. So the dynamic for me was always, this is why people were drawn to me, I think, at least because I was always coming across very coachable. Okay, here's this guy that a few years ago was a freaking starting tight end, watching on TV, playing college football, bigger than everyone. I have a big stature. I was bright eyed. I was a sponge trying to learn from everyone. And it was genuine. It was genuine to a degree. Part of it wasn't genuine because I knew how to like, how to get people to like you too. And Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. Yeah. Act like a puppy dog when people enter the room, smile when they talk. There's very simple tasks. Okay. Now that's okay though. It's not disingenuine. It's not like it's negative, but people liked me. I came across very coachable. Okay. So when we turn those tables and I start talking to colleagues of mine about going off on my own, all right, the 45-year-old to encourage the 27-year-old to actually go do that would be he's in a more of a mentor role. He's in an authority role. He's not going to sit here and give you sound advice on this topic, unless the sound advice is that, what, you're pretty mediocre. You probably should keep working at a company like the one you're at right now, because this is a good deal for you. But if they see you as a superstar, they're admitting to themselves that they are not. Because once you're a superstar in a business to business sales process, I don't give a shit what they're paying you. You shouldn't work for anyone else. You should be being an entrepreneur. You're this freaking close. You're this freaking close to taking that leap. Well, they've bribed you now with a $400,000 salary and you're freaking scared to take it. All right. And that's what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, and John, that sole topic is like the reason that you're crushing it on social media. Like
Yeah.
people are in agreement with this. People
Right.
understand it. So for you, let's go down financially. Like, what was the thought process of leaving? Did you have like a bunch of money in savings? Did you put your back against the wall? Like,
No,
how'd you think about that?
no, I just looked at my trajectory. Okay. So luckily I wasn't making 400 grand and people come to me. I do a little bit of like consulting, advising and like shit like that. And I tell people, hey man, you're making 350 grand right now. Yeah. It's hard. I don't know if I ever would have freaking done this. Knowing what I know now, I do it in a heartbeat. But if I was making 350 grand back then,
The handcuffs are on. The golden
dude,
handcuffs are on.
I was making 140 and was offered a job elsewhere for 350. And then that's when it clicked. Wait a minute, I'm just gonna do better on my own. And that's what I did. And like I said before, that you didn't need any capital. You could dive right into it. It's not as complicated as it seems. You got to incorporate, you got to get your insurance, your company needs to get licensed properly as an insurance agency, which is not hard to do if the owner already has an insurance license. Then you got to get them appointed with the carriers, which people think is like a lot harder than it actually is. I was in the employee benefits space, and all these carriers are, for lack of a better word, whores. So that you think they're going to be exclusive with the brokers they work with. They all want business. It's a competitive space. They will work with anybody. And that's what I did. The hard part was getting the actual client. So I think I knew I had a good value proposition. I gave myself a 6 to 12 month runway. I knew if it didn't work out, I'd be able to pivot back and go back into insurance and just get a job. I was already in insurance, but I could go get a job in that space probably easily. So I had a nice safety net. And, we got to that point. I never had to worry about it because I started bringing in revenue pretty quickly.
No,
The first,
That's the best part is because it's scary and you're like, I don't know, I'm not sure. But as he mentions here, he had 6 to 12 months and he was ready to rock. And let me
Yeah.
know, was the first day you woke up on your like after you left, was that a different type of energy than you brought on like when you
Yeah.
had the job? Was that different? Were you more excited? Were you like, we gotta get something, we gotta eat?
It was fun, man. It was fun, dude. You know, this is back before we didn't have all these distractions of social media and our phones and shit. You get out of bed, put on the news. I would put a suit on, and instead of getting in my car and driving to work, I would freaking sit at the little desk I had set up, and that was it. I'll tell you what, though, man. In those early days before I had any clients, I've never told this story on anyone's podcast. You run out of shit to do during the day. There's no one bugging you. You got all this free time. And it's like, okay, I made all these prospect calls. I sent out all these emails. So I started buying prospecting lists of companies, and you would be able to get their phone numbers, the decision makers' names, and then the fax numbers. And they email it to you, and you print off this big Excel spreadsheet. Well, dickhead over here starts just faxing people. Okay. Like, this is how I feel like I'm freaking antiquated. We barely even use fax machines were already being phased out at this point because everyone emails. But I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a fax machine. And actually I only had a fax machine because it was attached to my printer. Back then you'd buy printers and it'd have a fax machine in it. I started faxing people, like made a little flyer about our services and how I'd like to meet with you. And I just started faxing that out to people. Yeah, it could go over. Well, some law had been passed that you can't spam fax people. And of course, like some asshole freaking lawyer that has, you know, some ambulance chasing dude has like this class action that he's trying to get people to sign up for, reaching out to businesses saying, if you ever get a spam fax, they're actually sending in the mail a letter. If you ever get a spam fax, send it to us. We'll give you $500 per page for it. Sure enough, they turned around, sued me, and then plus legal fees was like 12 grand when my company was like literally making zero. I thought about bankrupt. I just closing the doors of my company because they were only suing my company, not me personally. It was 12 grand. I had to make a choice. Do I pay these motherfuckers 12 grand? I hate these people. I literally hate these lawyers. I hated them. It's 2006. And I decided, okay, it would be very easy just to shut the doors, open up a new company, not make that mistake again. And but wait, I already have a few clients. They're going to be weird to my clients. Shit. So I did it. You live and you learn. You paid the fine, and the name of that law firm, the name of the people that sued me, as part of that deal, are in a little notebook I have. That if we ever cross paths, I hope. Jordan, they need a favor. I hope they need a favor from me one day. I hope. So anyway, I will.
You're going out to get big enough. You're going out to get big enough to get a favor from them.
There was a
And
guy named
not.
Trojanowski Property Management in Elgin, Illinois. That freaking guy, because I called him to talk to him about it after the lawyer sent me this stuff. He hung up and called his lawyer, said I was harassing him, and then they put another freaking thing on there. And I'm like, dude, these guys are effing litigious nut jobs. And so Jerry Trojanowski of Elgin, Illinois, if we ever cross paths, I hope you need a favor from me one day, buddy. I'm gonna be like, remember in 2006 you sued a guy for faxing you asshole? Anyway.
Probably had many guys on that list.
Exactly.
So when did you start to realize in your journey? Because I think if I'm getting the dates right, 27 you start. At what point were you getting private equity looks? At what point did you go, wow, I might have a sellable product here? Because when you're building a business, is the thought to sell? Is the idea to sell? Or it's just like, hey, I just need to make money. And then the selling is like the cupcake. You're like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. So I knew pretty early on that I was never going to sell. I know that sounds contradictory.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I know that sounds contradictory, but what happened was I was getting offers really early from companies like my old employer, and they wanted us to come over, and I had maybe 700 grand in revenue, and I had, I think, what was it, a $1.6 million offer on the table. And it's a company called USI, who now I don't know, are they alone? Willis might have bought them. Anyway, the insurance industry has really consolidated over the years. They were one of the big dogs. And they were, and they were one of the ones convincing me that it's going to be very difficult to keep growing and keeping these profit margins. $1.6 million makes sense. Just take the 1.6 million, bring my block of business over, and then start getting a 20% commission on the new business I write for them as their little bitch. And if I would have, if I would have said yes to that carrot being dangled, I only had my company for like a year and a half at that point, and it was flattering, right? It's flattering, and these guys are these 50-year-olds telling me that there's no chance I'm going to be able to keep growing it. So thank goodness I didn't do it. And but that was when I kind of realized that strategic buyers in the industry like them were only going to pay you like 1.5 to 2 times. They were slightly over 2 times, but the industry standard was 1.5 to 2 times your gross revenue. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just say if you had $1 million book of business, you should expect to be getting paid 1.5 to 2 million. Well, yeah. So that makes a lot of sense in the insurance industry for an owner to consider that, because he or she is probably operating with somewhere around a 17 to 25% profit margin. Okay. So let's just say I had a 25% profit margin and I'm at $1 million. That means me as the owner is taking in 250 grand. Now you turn around and you're going to buy my company for 1.5 to 2 million. And I'm making 250 a year. Okay. This is rather life-changing, perhaps, or a deal to definitely consider. I was operating with such big profit margins where it was actually flipped. I was making 80% profit margin, and I was able to do that because I was in a niche, and it was freaking amazing. Why, if you're making 800 grand on $1 million, you would never sell your company for 2 million? Then that'd be insane. It wouldn't make any sense. And that's what the deal was at that point. Okay. So I just ignored it. I went to a couple M&A meetings, a couple investment banking meetings, like very early on in this process. And I'm like, dude, I would never sell. I remember I paid like $600 to be at some industry merger and acquisition meeting. And it was so funny because the people putting it on were obviously catering to the acquirers, not the acquirees. So we're all just sitting here and they're like talking about, A, B, and C. And I'm like, okay, dude, well, wait a minute, and start doing the freaking math. These assholes couldn't comprehend, Jordan. They can't comprehend the idea of an 80% profit margin. Okay. And I'm sitting there as a 29-year-old in a room with all these 50-year-olds looking around. And it's like, oh, all these big shots that make 150 fucking grand and work in the business office of Aon or Gallagher think their shit doesn't stink. And it's like, dude, why the fuck am I listening to these guys? I was making over $1 million at that point. It's like, who the fuck are they? So like they can't comprehend what I was doing. You know what I mean? So I literally didn't even stay for the afternoon session. I paid $600 to be there. And it was like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I Houdini'd at lunchtime, like later.
Yeah, John, that's the best thing about it is you mentioned this a couple times.
Yeah.
That VP role or that big office. Dude.
Yeah.
That's the thing about entrepreneurs. You got to make your own little like role or whatever it is, because no one's going to give you a promotion. You got to make your own promotion. And
Bro.
like it doesn't matter. It's such an ego-based thing.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people
That's exactly right. Well, and then to tie the knot here on what my whole point though with this whole thing, because you just nailed it too right there. But here's who changed the game for a guy like me that had big profit margins. Private equity, which later I've learned, I knew nothing about private equity. I had heard they entered the insurance space, and they're gobbling up smaller firms like mine. Okay, well, that's still not going to make any sense for me because of my margins. There's this industry standard. It's going to be the industry standard. And that's what everything changed. Private equity decided that they're going to give higher multiples instead of 1.5 to 2 times, but attach it to your EBITDA, to your net profits for the year. So they might be doing 8 times or 9 times.
Oh, wow.
That's your actual profit.
Massive.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, I go, so they make me this offer. They tell me they're going to give me that many times my profit. I'm like, these dumbasses have no idea that I'm on an 80% profit margin. Fast forward, go through the process. Sure enough, They did it. They didn't give a shit. And that's when I had kind of a crash course in private equity. I'm like, well, how are they going to make any money on this thing? And little did I know, okay, they're going to buy a bunch of companies like mine for say 7, 8, 9 times EBITDA, and they're going to package us all together and sell it to a bigger private equity firm with all of us as one big company now for a 12 times EBITDA. So I bought you for 8 times. We're going to sell you in a few years for 12 times. This is the arbitrage of money. And I mean, for me, it kind of felt like a Ponzi scheme. Okay. And then what's that company going to do with it? Are they going to sell it to somebody else? Like, you know what I mean? Where does this end?
Yeah.
And I believe that it can't go on forever. It won't go on forever. And you know, like Malcolm Gladwell writes a book called The Outliers. I don't know if you ever read that or not. But one of the things they talk about is, you know, what if Bill Gates was born, you know, 10 years earlier or 10 years later? He wouldn't have that success in life. And to compare myself to Bill Gates, I would not have been in this position had I been 10 years older or 10 years younger, just because I entered this space during the sweet spot of private equity in this arena.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's fascinating when you start to not even, but it's like unintentional. It's like and that's what I thought was the coolest thing about entrepreneurship and really growing a business is the random people who come into your life and you're like, hey, here's an opportunity, here's a value prop, here's a
right.
In a role, in your previous role, you could never have that opportunity because no one's going to approach you. You can't, like, some people sell their book, I guess, but like not really. Like, there's not the value at the end.
Yeah. Well, and also
what difference.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for private equity, because the company that bought mine was just backed by private equity, and quite frankly, they weren't even that big when they purchased my company. Now, since then, they've grown a shitload because they've done this and had a great private equity backer that's dumping a lot of money into it. So now they've grown huge, but it gave us like kind of an entrepreneurial type of feel because I had to work there for a few years after I sold. It was still kind of a environment, a growth oriented environment. Okay. Where, hey, maybe we're still putting our, you know, we could put our flag in the fucking ground in different places. But the issue is if they weren't that, and I sold to like Aon, Marsh, Gallagher, those other big players. Okay. You think they give a shit? I don't give a shit if they bought you for $50 million. They bought you for $50 million. That's a freaking, you know, needle in the haystack for them. Who gives a shit? It's a drop in the bucket. Okay. It doesn't matter. All right. So you're going to come sell your company. You're worth 50 million now. You think you're going to go make a difference at that organization? You're not, because if you're sold for 50 million, that means your block of business, depending on your profit margins, whatever. It's, you know, probably, I don't know, $8 or $9 million of revenue. They got $1 billion fucking dollars of revenue coming in each year. You know what I mean? Your 9 million ain't gonna fucking matter. You know what I mean? So anyway.
Absolutely. So what was that experience like after the contract? Because I know I've had a few podcast guests who sold businesses and then they had to work there for a few years. Because I know it's a transition. You're used to being the boss, and now it's like, hey, we're kind of working as a team here. How is that? And how I just say that because if anyone's in that similar situation, how should people think about that?
Yeah, if your business is a relationship business like insurance was or is, you got to realize that employment contract period is there to institutionalize your business and make you irrelevant. In other words, whenever that contract's up, their account managers or the ones you've brought over that are going to remain employed there under their branding, under their like infrastructure, you're not going to matter. You're going to sail into the sunset. So for me, it was a 5-year employment contract, and it had to be because it's such a relationship business and they're paying us a ton of money. Yeah. So the way they structured it for us was that we had incentives year 2 and year 3 to grow our existing book of business and to retain it. They actually withheld some of the sales price if the business wasn't retained. So you had every incentive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You had every incentive in the world with the way our deals were structured. to grow your book or to grow your business and keep the current clients on the books. The last 2 years of that contract, though, we were just getting a salary like some other employee. And for me, I had taken a bunch of my deal in stock, and the stock had already went up, like tripled 2 different times. And I'm like walking around worth like dozens of millions of dollars, expected to do like 2 years of work, like I don't know, like the guy down the hall making like 90 grand. And it's like dead man walking, man, because as a company grows, there's more toes to step on. There's more egos involved, and people start to get defensive and people start to get protective. I had a situation with our person in our headquarters that was in the same kind of vertical as me, and I could tell he was motherfucking me behind my back to other people. And it's like, it's getting back to me because they're telling me, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And it's like, wait, what am I stressing about this shit for? What am I even here for? So once I started to feel like I was on this executive fast track, but then it kind of started to fall. It started to become clear that at the end of my 5 years,
it was going to be done.
Well, exactly. I'm not going to renew it, and there'd be no reason to. And I don't know if they would have wanted me to or not, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't going to happen. And, so knowing that the next year and a half kind of fucking blew. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie.
Well, the mindset that you're going into this when you're like, dude, I got to get out of here is that, because you got the money, you got the stuff, and it's just the agreement. So then it leads to, you go.
Well, you started getting because I brought my employees over. So they started to transition my employees out of not even coming to me. And it's like, these are people I'm friends with that like, okay, that girl wasn't even in insurance. She knows everything because of me. Like, we're friends. We all hung out. And now you're part of this bigger organization. And you think these nerds were going to happy hour? They weren't doing shit like that. we were doing that shit. Okay. We're a team, man. And this guy comes in and just tries to rip us apart. You're going to report to him now. You're going to report to this. Starts like fucking asking me to like participate in sales meetings and go through our prospects in Salesforce and like postmortem reviews of shit. I'm like, it's like stupid, dude. It's like, okay, this is the worst ever. I can't think of anything worse than what I'm experiencing right now. Yeah. You should cut that as a social media clip. I'll make that a reel. Wait, if you cut that part we just did, I'll make that a freaking reel on social media.
It's definitely gonna land. It's definitely gonna land with people.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's good. That's good. So then, what's going on with 2,000% raise? Where did that come up with that brand? I know aligns with a lot of people. They're like, damn, I'd like that. Yeah. Everyone's at a 3% raise. They're like, where are you getting a 2,000%?
Dude, you'd be amazed about the traction I get when I wear my apparel out. If anyone's watching on YouTube, you could see that I'm wearing a 2,000% raise hat and hoodie. It's the best when I'm like going through the airport. And well, what's cool about it now, my podcast is getting popular. Some people are like, oh, I listen to your show, bro. And that's kind of cool, right? But
unreal.
Yeah, but bigger than that though, it's like when I'm coming through and just like the TSA guy sees my shirt or something like that. I'd like a 2,000% raise. How do I get one of those? So the concept is simple. All right. So instead of sitting in corporate America waiting for another human being to give you as a human being the respect you want and give you your raise and dictate your future, all right, which is usually 3% cost of living adjustments, and then a couple of years you'll get lucky and you'll get promoted to this and get a 10% or whatever. How about take other people out of this? You control your own destiny. Pivot, stay in the same industry, keep the exact same job, just put yourself on top of the org chart with your own company. And in that process, you're going to be giving yourself a 2,000% raise and building equity in yourself that you're able to sell at the end. And once people start looking at life like that, all right. And we got a lot of people on my Instagram and that have read my book that are they've opened their eyes because they're the ones making 300 grand a year thinking their shit doesn't stink. They're the ones that have all their friends from freaking high school and college making half or less of what they make. They're the ones with the nicer cars and the bigger house. Their kids are the ones in travel hockey and travel basketball and travel baseball. Okay. Because they could afford all this shit. All right. But they're also the ones with the golden handcuffs that don't see it. Okay. Shit. I'm making 300. Okay. Am I going to make 6 million anytime soon? If I make 6 million, and if I made 6 million, could I sell that for maybe 60 million one day? No, man. I don't want to see that far. I'm cool with my 300 grand because fuck, man, our CFO, he's way up here at the company. He's an executive. He only makes 220 and I'm a top sales guy making 300, motherfucker. You know what I mean? So those are the people that get the most out of my page. Now there's younger people that are not in sales, that find other ways to be motivated by the shit I talk about. But that guy right there is the one that really, I think this shit really resonates with, because he's been through the ringer. He's been at a couple different companies. He's got out of the race. And he got news for you. Everyone making 80 grand. Guess what? By the time you're making that 250 or 300, you're not going to be happy because you're going to do the math and think, oh shit, how much did I make the company? This 250 or 300 is not even enough for me. And you're always going to have that conundrum working in corporate America. So we got a book, I've got merchandise, 2000%raise.com is my website, a very popular podcast that's it's in the top 1.5% right now. And, we just started it a few months ago. I interview people that are entrepreneurial minded. Some are celebrities. Some are just very successful business people. Like I had Ryan DeLuca on that started bodybuilding.com.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He started bodybuilding.com from his parents' garage. But then I have Austin Eckler, the starting running back from the LA Chargers, talking about, what he's going to do after he's done playing football in terms of the businesses he's in. So it's, and everything in between.
So that was the other thing. First of all, 2000% raise. It makes sense. People should go check out the website, grab some merch. Cause it's one of those things. It's funny because when you said the TSA thing, I was like, there's so many times where someone's wealthy and they're like, oh, must be nice.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing. I want a 2000%.
Right.
It's the exact same thing. So I think that's awesome.
Dude,
then the other thing, yeah.
No, keep going.
Well, I was gonna pivot topics because the thing I was curious about is like you name drop here and there with your network.
Right.
How are you infiltrating this top 1%? Like,
yeah,
a lot of people can't, because as I've looked into it, you're Aaron Rodgers, like all these different people got the connections. I'm like, who is this guy? How are you doing some of this? How does someone get an elite network?
Exactly. Dude, I got to tell you, man, it's when I got done with my employment contract and I decided I retired initially, and then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna be a venture capitalist, which by the way just means retired. I'm a podcast host and a venture capitalist. What is it exactly does that mean, Chad? Well, you could say retired, I guess. But I decided that insurance was very lucrative for me. It's very good for my family. But at the end of the day, it's not the most exciting dinner conversation. So in this next chapter of my life, I could just decide to get back in insurance and just do exactly what I just did, do it again. Maybe it works out a little differently because I don't think private equity is as hot right now, but I could just make a ton of fucking money, have a company to hand off to my kids, whatever. So decided, you know what, man, you got one life to live, bro. I lost both of my parents over the last 10 years.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, man, it sucks. And you just start looking at life a little bit differently. My son lived with his mom down in Dallas, and some things kind of changed and he had to move up here with me. And when he was like 10, and talk about life-changing decisions that present themselves, and you just start to look at, okay, man, listen, I'm from Schaumburg, Illinois, and I've made piles of freaking money here. I could have just kept my job at Arthur J. Gallagher and be working, maybe I'd probably be sailing into the sunset there now, but making 200 grand, not doing the shit I'm doing in life. But it just dawned on me, dude, you made enough money. You're only here once. How much of it are you going to dedicate to insurance? And because of that, I said, you know what, I'm going to still be in business. I'm going to be a venture capitalist, but I'm going to get involved in stuff that I think is interesting. And I kind of just said, well, fuck, why can't I do this shit, man? Why can't I do this stuff? So put it on my LinkedIn that I'm a venture capitalist now. And that's a good way to make a lot of friends when you do that stuff. And ended up taking me out to LA a lot in my journeys. Me and Aaron Rodgers crossed paths, end up being a partner of his on actually 2 different deals. And he's actively involved. We've met a number of times. He's not the operating founder. Obviously, he's playing in the NFL still. Yeah, but he's present, man. And because of that, then I got on people's radar screens because people, oh, that's that football player, the ex-football player from Notre Dame that lives in Chicago. Okay, there's so many people out here in LA that are full of shit. That guy's not. He actually is legit. And your circles start expanding. End up doing another deal with Kevin Garnett, who actually went to high school in Chicago. He was the best basketball player. Yeah, in class of 95. He was the best high school basketball player in 95 in Chicago. I was the best football player in Chicago. And here we are as business partners in our 40s years later. And I'm at this freaking party with him in Beverly Hills. It's a gambling application that we're both involved in. I start talking to him. And, you got a kick out of that story. I go, come on, man, tell me the truth. You remember me, right? He goes, I can't say I do, man, but that's pretty fucking cool anyway. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I've done a good job of putting myself in the right circles. People respect the fact that I'm not full of shit. I don't have limited partners of people that invested into a fund. It's not like I've collected other people's money. When you collect other people's money and put it into kind of a co-investing opportunity, or if you're managing a fund, the world changes, man. You have to do your diligence. You have to do, there's certain guidelines and protocols that have to be in place, and you should, you have to be a good steward of their investment. Whereas for me, it's just my money, man. And I made enough. So I was like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. I'll take a flyer on this. Let's give this a shot, So I think people have, kind of gravitated towards that. And it's not just kind of shots in the dark either, man. It's not shots in the dark. See, here's what people don't understand for early stage venture capital. 8 out of 10 are going to go to 0. They're never going to make it. You're hoping that 2 out of 10 returns you 50 to 100 times your money, maybe, and you make a fortune from it. And, the other 8 that failed, well, shit, that's the cost of doing business. Now, I'm in deals like that, but I'm also in some other cool high profile deals, bro. I'm the Newport Beach Marriott Hotel.
I heard about this.
Brother, it came for sale a few years ago. My dad was a high school gym teacher, bro. You know what we used to do on vacation? Every 2 years, he would save up our money and we'd go on a nice vacation where me and my brother, no bullshit, we thought we were fucking rich. We'd go to fucking Hawaii. We'd go to, wherever. And we weren't staying at the Ritz-Carltons there, but we were staying at nice places. And my dad was fucking great with money, man. And from a saving perspective. And 1 year, we went to the Newport Beach and stayed at the fucking Newport Beach Marriott. My dad passed away.
I'm getting chills.
Dude, it's fucking cool, right? So here we are. That was he passed away in 2018. In 2020, I'm in the right circles of the right freaking people. Somebody says they're trying to get me to invest in an apartment complex in Las Vegas. A guy named Josh Childress, who played on the Sixers, just retired a couple of years ago, Stanford guy, really smart dude. And he tells me about this deal in Vegas. I go, buddy, I'm looking for reasons not to go to Vegas, not reasons to go to Vegas. I go, what else are you involved in? He goes, shit, we were just in this Newport Beach Marriott deal, but it's already closed and that's, everything's accounted for there, but that's going to be a good one. Damn it. And I go, well, shit, if you ever get one like that again, let me know. And I told him the story I just told you. Sure enough, in the 11th hour, someone ends up falling out. If Josh would have thought I was some fucking asshole that he didn't like, there was plenty of people that wanted to get in that deal. He brings me in the deal. All right. Because we hit it off that fucking day. And I told him the story I just told you. Okay. Now I'm in that deal. Oh, who is that guy? Oh, that's that John Cerasani guy from Chicago. How do you get in? Oh, he's business partners with Aaron Rodgers. What? Huh? Oh, it's that guy. Oh, no, he's also in that deal with Kevin Garnett. Now it's like you're in that Newport Beach Marriott deal. And I got to tell you, bro, I got no business being in this motherfucker. All right. There's billionaires. Josh was lucky to get in there. Like there's billionaires. They're talking about buying the Oklahoma City Thunder over glasses of freaking wine. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah, let me, me too. You know what I mean? But there's a certain oh gosh, what do I want to call it? A certain like attraction I think people have for authentic people. Like a lot of those guys, man, are generational wealth families, and God bless them, because my kids are now too. Okay, my kids are now too, and hopefully their kids will be too, and my kids don't fuck it up for us. You know what I mean? So I'm not. All right. So I think when guys like me who talk like me enter those fucking rooms, it's like kind of like they kind of get a kick out of it, but like it's like a little novelty to them at first. But then you start having conversations, and just like when I was at Arthur J. Gallagher, all bright-eyed trying to learn, hey, I'm a sponge with these guys too now. Okay, guess what? People love that shit. People love that shit, especially again
It's
if it's done sincerely.
absolutely, it's huge
Yeah.
to go there, learn from people. And then I think the other really cool thing was that story about Josh.
Yeah.
You said, "Do you have any other deals?"
Yeah.
Most people look at the menu and go, "That's it? Okay, I'm gonna pick that one." You go,
Mhm.
"You got any off menu items?"
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people don't realize that you're one question away. If he didn't ask that question, tell that story, do that thing, there's nothing there. He's not getting in the rooms. It's that one question.
Exactly. And Josh is he's I shouldn't I probably shouldn't speak for him, but here's how these industries work, man. Josh is African American. There's a push right now in the private equity space to especially in the wake of, you know, what was going on the last probably five years with the whole, you know, movements that's been happening. There's been a pressure in the private equity space to diversify, whether it's people of color, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's well, those are the only two I can think of off the top of my head, but or women own business, women too, women just in
It's
general, not
everything. Everyone
yeah,
wants to get more involved. Yeah.
anything except white men. Like it's a white male dominated industry. So whatever they could do to diversify that. And Josh has a successful real estate investment company that's black owned. And I got to tell you, you talk about networking and keeping your head on a swivel. I'm not going to say their names, but one of the biggest private equity groups that exist, the biggest, I think, actually, um, has a, you know, they want to be a leader in this space with this kind of inclusion. And, you know, I'm coming as an investor under Josh. Josh is only there because of what I just said. And he's smart. He deserves to be there. But how does he get in that room? He's an NBA player. He wasn't an NBA basketball owner. We're buying the fucking Newport Beach Marriott Hotel on the Pacific Coast Highway. Okay, register that. Okay, you got to have a shitload of fucking money to be in this group, and you got to be invited in. They're not letting every dickhead in there. You know what I mean? So I get in now because Josh brought me in. Let's fucking go. Fucking awesome. You know, awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. And the other amazing thing is that it's what you said. When you
Yeah.
go there and you're not going, I need this, I need, like, you're probably loose with it. You're like, how
Right.
much you need, I can wire you right now, I can make this easy. Because
Yep.
as you get bigger and bigger circles, it's not, hey, we can't do a big like 25 questions here. Like,
Right.
hey, are you in or are you out? Like,
Yeah.
and
That's
that's
yeah.
you got to know your place in these different situations where it's like talk, don't talk. Like, it,
That's right. And this deal with Josh, one of their investors fell out and it left a big hole that ultimately I think Josh probably would have just filled his own. He made a lot of money in the NBA. It wasn't like
yeah.
Shaq. He wasn't like Shaq or LeBron, but I'm sure he could have had the money to come up with if he needed to, because he didn't want to screw his own reputation up where they've committed to this
Oh,
certain
because he's
dollar.
facilitating. Gotcha, gotcha.
He's already committed to this dollar amount from his people. And if that falls apart, so, you know, and it's not like he had a shitload of investors under him. It's pretty close in the group itself. So, um, yeah, you're absolutely right. I had to kind of trust him a little bit and the people that I met him through to say, okay, he isn't gonna, like, hopefully they did their diligence, because I'm not gonna have the time to do it. This was the 11th hour. We got 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm not, if I asked to do diligence on it, I'm sure they would have said yes and sent me everything I needed, but I hadn't been in a deal like that. I'm not going to really even know how to do the diligence properly. So I'm
And
going to just trust
the
them.
the other value that a lot of people don't think about inside of these deals is it's not that John's going there to be like, yo, we're gonna 10x our money.
Right.
It's partly make some money, but even more importantly, the relationships where you're like, hey, now I can talk to these guys because we're in a group chat because we're doing this deal.
Right.
And it's basically a mastermind buy-in, and people have no idea.
Yep.
People have no clue.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And it was also during COVID, by the way. So it's like,
Which
you
is
know,
wild.
yeah, exactly. And that's part of why we were able to get it done with and that's part of why we're gonna make a fortune on it. There was distressed during freaking COVID, hadn't been updated since the 70s, and occupancy was jack shit during COVID. It just made sense. Yeah, so this might actually be a 10xer, but we'll see. Knock on wood. No,
Absolutely.
it's been fun though,
That's
but
awesome.
that's the kind of stuff though, man. I'll talk about it on social media every once in a while. That I'm part of that, and I got to shut the fuck up because people will start messaging me that they're because it's named the VIA now, VEA, and it's very popular, and rooms ain't cheap, bro. So people call me asking me if I have a connection, and I do, but it's like 3 people removed. I got to make this call, ask him to make this call. Hey, you better like be my aunt or my cousin or something if you're asking for that favor. All right.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So I know we're winding down. I want to get to the last couple of things.
Sure.
For you, John, people talk about it. There's rich and famous.
Mm-hmm.
Famous being social media famous at this point.
Yep.
People always say that rich and anonymous is the way to go.
Yeah.
Why did you want to step in the spotlight?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting question. Thanks for asking. Nobody's actually asked me that before. I think I'm doing all this shit on Instagram and my podcast, and people just assume I'm probably not rich because I'm doing it, which is kind of the foundation of your question. Listen, man, I've looked at life and I've decided, okay, how do we leave? You know, I talked about my parents earlier. I talked about my son moving in with me. We only have so much time here to actually make a difference. And when you lose people in your family, I think you realize how short life really is. And you start to question, okay, what's really relevant? What really mattered? Okay. Being a good dad, having an impact on your kids, I think is one way that all of us in that position could make an impact on life. Okay. But how about bigger than that? Bigger than that one freaking person. All right. You know, what's your legacy going to be after you're gone? And for me, I feel like my story and opening up people's eyes and really just giving them the courage to understand that there is a way to compete against bigger corporations and become an entrepreneur and actually win in that environment. And if you could see that path, it's life-changing. So, you know, feeding the hungry, solving homelessness, those are definitely bigger issues than what I just talked about, but I'm a drop in the bucket with those issues. If I get out there and talk about dog rights and stuff like that, awesome. You know what I mean? Awesome. But it's a drop in the bucket. If I really want to make an impact that's going to affect hopefully the masses and leave a legacy for me, it's what I just said. I think my message is clear. And the feedback I've been getting over the last several months on social media with like thanking me, like literally thanking me, because they see me as a normal dude that took the risk. And now I'm in the position I'm in, hanging out with Aaron Rodgers, owning Newport Beach Marriott Hotel. Like who the fuck is this guy? Wait, who are you? You came from generational wealth, right? No, my friends might have now, but I didn't, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting to me because when I think about social media, I realize that there's everyone who's thinking, oh, I need to grow my business doing this. I need to grow this doing this. But the niche you're talking about is there are so many people who are making, and it might be preposterous to say or hear, but it's people are making 150, 250, 300. And I talk to them and they're like, I am barely getting by. Like the world's expensive. And it's like to not see another opportunity because the way you explained it, I've heard it similarly before, but I've never heard it with the brand like 2000% raise. You don't think like that. Like that's where you're unique because we don't think about that. And that kind of puts it in a way where it's like, oh shit, wait, really? 20x? That's a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to tell you, from a salary standpoint, you know, forget about the percentage standpoint, but just the dollar amount. I went from making 140 at Arthur J. Gallagher to my first year out making 170, 180-ish. Then the next year was 350. All right, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. But there wasn't really a change in lifestyle other than just being able to afford more shit until that next year. I went from 350 to about 850 in a year. My
Oh,
business
wow.
started, right between years 2 and 3, my business hockey sticked. That's when everything changed for me. Wait a minute. And you're never going to have that kind of a jump. And then it just kept going up from there. That's when I realized, okay, you know what? Instead of saving money with my goal to buy a second home one day or buy this vacation
I'll just
club
make more.
yeah, now my goal is going to be to fucking retire early. You know what I mean? Like it's literally life changing when you have that kind of a salary jump, and you're never going to experience that as a W-2 employee.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. So tell me, John, where can people find you and what's going on with this newsletter of yours?
2000%raise.com has everything on there. My book, my podcast, merchandise, sign up for my email list. I think our email list, it's exclusive as shit right now, man. It's only people that want to be on it. You'd think it's not some 100,000 person bulk list. It's people in the motherfucking know. All right. So sign up for that. You're going to be getting an email every Monday. Usually it's to promote the podcast, but also some other things we do. Like I'm having a networking event June 30th.
Incredible.
In Chicago, at the Trump Tower in Chicago. That's going to be a blast. You're getting on our email list. You're the first to know. So please do that. 2000%raise.com. At John Cerasani is my Instagram. At John Cerasani is my TikTok. And then at 2000% raised by John Cerasani is my YouTube. But I would say go towards the Instagram and TikTok first. That's where all the action's at, especially the Instagram.
Absolutely. And the other amazing thing about John is you can see there that he's had great success. He does not rest on that. He's still growing in all these different areas where he's like, we're growing the email list, we're growing the TikTok, we're growing the Instagram. Because there's not a lot of people who have the pride to go, we're starting over again. Let's get it.
Right, exactly.
And having fun with it.
Yeah,
I love it, John.
Awesome.